Hey, you guys. Movie retrospective once again. And we're doing another really old one. Because, like I said, we wanted to do more, stuff from kind of the golden era because we had really kind of been neglecting that. So we got around finally to doing Cat People from 1942.
Yeah.
And you had never seen this, right?
No.
I think I had seen it once or twice, like a long time ago. I hadn't seen it in many years, but it was on HBO Max, so we went in there and watched that. And I kind of feel like the history behind this movie is really interesting because what they ended up doing, and this is weird because the movie I think is really associated with Val Lewton, obviously, who was, probably one of the most influential movie producers like of that era. But the weird thing about it is that he didn't direct this. I mean, it was kind of like he sort of co-wrote it, I guess. But usually, directors get most of the credit for the movies. But in this case, it's usually like the producer, because it seemed like he was a lot more involved in the whole process than producers usually are. But Jacques Tourneur, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he was the one that directed it, and they worked together a lot. So basically what ended up happening was that Val Lewton had worked for David O. Selznick, very famous guy. And RKO Pictures at this point were having some financial difficulties, and it was mostly Orson Welles' fault because he had made Citizen Kane and he had made The Magnificent Ambersons, and both of them, while, amazing films and everybody looks back on them as classics nowadays, but were not real profitable.
No, thing is that I wouldn't put it all on Orson Welles. You also got to put it on Howard Hughes.
Well, I was really just making a joke about so I could get into talking about.
Yeah, Howard Hughes was running RKO Pictures as a fucking personal dating service. Really, he didn't really give a shit about making money with RKO. But and fucking Hell's Angels also fucked over RKO Pictures, which is a movie about World War I pilots. But RKO Pictures did come up with some really great flicks. Okay, but. RKO was a fucking, what do you call it? Prestige project, really, for just Howard. Howard trying to date girls. But, then this movie came along. A good movie.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, like I said, so Orson Welles had made these movies, and even though, as I said, there were classics nowadays, like back then, they didn't really make any money, and RKO was actually going to go under. So what they were thinking about doing, they said, hey, look at what Universal is doing over there with all those monster movies. Let's do that. So, because prior to this, I guess they didn't really even have like a horror, wing, or they didn't have like any, a group that was doing horror. So they decided to start doing one, and they said, we're going to do what Universal is doing. So they asked Val Lewton, who at this point, I don't really think had worked on, I mean, obviously he worked with David O. Selznick, but he hadn't made any movies of his own. So they asked him to head up their horror division, and they basically said, we're just going to give you the titles and $135,000, which wasn't a lot even back then, and you are going to give us a movie and kind of make them like the Universal monster movies. So the first title that they gave him was Cat People. And they kind of wanted something like, like the Wolfman type of thing.
Yeah.
Now, Val Lewton was just kind of like, yeah, but he's like, I kind of want to do something like that. But he's like, I'm kind of more interested in making something kind of more like classier. You know what I mean? Like not so much like the Universal monster movies, but kind of along the same lines. So he had actually written, I believe, a short story that was called The Baghita. And he was also kind of like looking into all of these older kind of story, like other short stories and stuff like that were kind of about cat people. And he's like, I kind of want to do something with that because they don't really, they have a lot of werewolf movies and shit like that, but they don't really do a lot of stuff with cats. So he decided to write that. And it was him and, the other screenwriter, and they kind of like collaborated on it. So they make the movie, or they start making the movie, and like the executives, I guess, like from the movie studio from RKO, kind of came over and they were looking at the shit, and they were like, we don't like this. We don't like what you're doing. There's not enough horror. It's supposed to be a horror movie, and they just were not having it, and they were actually like threatened to fire them and all this other kind of crap. But they persevered in the end and basically made what Val Lewton and the director Jacques Tourneur wanted to make. And interestingly, even though the executives hated it, it did go a little bit over budget. I think it ended up costing $180,000, $190,000, which again was nothing, because I think like the movies that Universal was making, like Wolfman and stuff, I think they were $1 or $2 million each. So they were really not expecting all that much. However, this movie, when it came out, was a massive success. Actually sold out some theaters and like even outdid the Wolfman at some theaters, which kind of came out at around the same time, and ended up saving RKO from bankruptcy. It made $4 million, which was, like 3,000% profit.
Yeah.
So at that point, they were like, hey, good job, Val. And he went on to make 9 more films for RKO, including like some other really good ones, like that one with The Body Snatcher with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. He made that one. I Walked with a Zombie, which was also great. But they kind of let him stay true to his vision, and more or less, like all 9 movies that he made from there, even though they're not all considered as fondly as this one, actually all did make money and were kind of instrumental. And his movies, like I said, are very, very influential, like became influential like in the horror genre. Maybe not as influential as like Universal, but I kind of feel like him, and particularly the cinematographer, like the way that this is shot, was really influential. And we also have to bring up too that the very famous scene in this with like with the woman like walking down the street and then like it being quiet and then the bus pulling up and you think it's like a hiss of a panther or whatever, like a jump scare. That was kind of the first time, I believe that was the first time that had ever been done. So now, now it's like in every single horror movie where it's like quiet, 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 bah, you know what I mean? But they had never really done that before. So for a long time in the industry, any kind of like quiet, 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 loud, like jump scare like that was called a Lewton bus. And he actually used it again, like in some of his other films as well. So it kind of became like a little bit of a hallmark. So that was like super, super influential as well. So what is this movie about, cat people? Oh, and we have to, we should probably do the remake at some point too.
I think the remake's better actually.
The remake is more
modern,
lurid, and it's kind of more, it kind of like upped the horror. And honestly, I think Paul Schrader made the remake, which was in 1982, and he kind of based it more off American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is more. Was kind of like the idea was sort of taken from the Wolfman because she's essentially like a werecat, but he wanted to make it less a horror movie and more like it's more like a noir actually. It kind of is more the original Cat People from 1942. I kind of feel like it's more like a noir movie, not just in the way it's shot, but just kind of like, I don't know, like thematically it seems more like a noir movie to me, and a little bit more like a drama that just has like some horror elements to it. You know what I'm saying?
I liked everything about the movie but the story. I mean, it looked good. It had good cast. Had filled with 40s hotties. Okay, everybody's cute in the movie. Even the girl, even the overweight one with the cigarette washing the floor was cute. Remember her?
They kept brushing ashes off her boobs.
Yeah.
She was like in 2 scenes.
Yeah, so they're trying, and the set or the setting is very like highbrow. It's like classy. Everything is sophisticated looking.
I think the settings were remade from reused from some Orson Welles movies too, because they said, well, they wanted it cheap, so they said we want to use sets we already got. Yeah.
So it's kind of like taking place in an alternate universe where everybody is fucking fantastic, and then everybody's got a shit ton of money.
Well, it's glamorous.
It's glamorous, yeah. Which that's what people pay to see. People like that, all right, because they want to escape the drudgery of everyday life. And they see a waitress working in a damn restaurant, and even she is elevated in the movie. So it makes you feel good when you're a waitress working at some diner downtown.
Giving everybody chicken gumbo. Why is anybody eating the chicken gumbo?
White folk ain't eating chicken gumbo. Yeah. Which she was a comedic relief.
This fucking white ass motherfucker keeps coming in here. All he wants is apple pie. That's all he ever wants. And I was like, I thought that was like really funny.
They're like, you tell him. She's from Louisiana. You tell these New York people, eat the damn chicken gumbo. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Then so it was that aspect of the movie, the glamour content it had good effects. There's a part where she's having a dream, kind of hallucination, and there's animated cats walking towards the camera, and there's a swirling, and then a cat man, was it King? What's his name from
King John from Serbia?
From Serbia is coming up on you, and I was like, oh, that's pretty creative that they used, real high quality hand drawn type animation in a live action movie to illustrate like a dream or hallucination. Like you said, certain parts of the edit and everything were ahead of his time, like when the bus ends up giving you a jump scare.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's the first time that had ever been done.
A lot of stuff in it was kind of like important. But the story had a bunch of potential in it that they didn't do. A lot more stuff should have happened. And it didn't. She should have known that she was a werecat a lot earlier in the movie, and then she should have gotten right with it, and then she should have killed some more people, and then she should have fucking had a slightly different end to her, I think, than what they did, because that character kind of ends abruptly, and it's ambiguous. There's a bunch of stuff about the movie. It seems kind of like it was pulling its punches. Like it could have been a lot scarier. It's not scary.
No, I don't think it's scary. But the thing about it is that I think that Val Lewton specifically wanted to make something that was more subtle than Universal, and wanted to make something. And honestly, it seemed like the movie was kind of more, it was taking some stuff from the Wolfman, because like in the Wolfman, like Larry Talbot is a sympathetic character. Like he gets bit by a wolf and he gets turned. That's not his fault. So I kind of feel like he was kind of playing with the same idea here, where Irena, from Serbia, who she actually doesn't know she's a werecat, but she suspects that she's a werecat because of like where she came from, and she fled her country and stuff. She just thinks, and it's not like a full moon situation. It's whenever you get like sexually aroused or angry or jealous or something like that. So anytime you have like really, really heightened emotions, then you're going to turn into like a panther. Yeah. And so because she's tried to like stay alone all this time and stuff, she doesn't actually know if that will happen, but she's like really, really scared of it. So I kind of feel like he wanted to explore her as like a sympathetic monster. Yeah. Because you still like kind of feel bad for her because she can't help being like that. You're led to believe that she was born like that because they implied that her mom was like that. There was
a wasted opportunity. And earlier on in the movie, she goes to a Serbian restaurant and everybody's all fantastic, and they got one fantastic looking woman in there who's looking all like this and that, and she's freaking out, and she comes up and recognizes her as another damn werecat. All right. And she makes her a little, and there's like a little bit of Pookie fighting, a little bit like a Pookie fucking situation between two Pookies, and then she walks off, and you never see that character again. She should have come back as a mentor in this. There's a bunch of shit that they wasted. That character should have come back to her and said, and confirmed to her that she was a Pookie waiting to flip. And then tried to walk her through it. You know what I mean? It should have been all kinds of stuff that could have happened, but they didn't do it. It wasn't very creative writing. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with the RKO studio managers and give it a thumbs down. I would have thought that this would have failed. I agree, because they didn't like it. I didn't like it either. They could have done some really cool shit with it, with storytelling. There was a lot there that they could have done, but they didn't do it. And it's kind of like they didn't want to risk it, or they didn't want to pull it. They were pulling punches. Like they didn't want to know. What, they didn't want too many Pookies on the screen? What's the problem? The whole fucking movie was a Pookie fight between this chick and these other cute chicks over this man. All right. And
a man that really wasn't worth it.
You know what I mean?
To be honest with you.
And like I said, every girl in this is cute. So why? Let's just go ahead and lean into it. Make it a cat fight over men, which that would have made a lot more sense to me.
I don't know. I kind of feel like seeing they did make a sequel to this, which was called Curse of the Cat People, and Irena does come back like as a ghost or something. And she's actually kind of like communicating with the daughter of the guy and the woman, like from this one. You know what I mean? Like from this one, they get married and then they have a kid, and then like but it's kind of like a slightly different thing. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I said, I think that he wanted more and if you watch like some of his later films, like you kind of see where he's coming from with it. Like I said, he was more interested, I think, in exploring Irena like as a character, and was kind of interested too. And you didn't really see this a lot in the 1940s, I have to say. You didn't usually see female characters like Irena that were kind of like, I don't want to even call her a femme fatale, because she wasn't like vampy or anything like that. Like I said, she was sympathetic. Like, yeah, she killed somebody like at the end, but one, that dude had it coming because he was a fucking sleazy creepo. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh well. But like I said, she couldn't really help it. And the thing about it too that I thought was interesting, that I kind of liked the whole, like, you have to go into this movie like not expecting a horror movie, because I agree with you that it's not really a horror movie. It does have a couple of scenes in it that were very influential, like for horror later on, but it's more like a drama with like a little bit of horror element to it. You know what I'm saying? You know, the bus scene and the pool scene, which is another one that's like really famous, which was actually like recreated exactly like in the remake from 1982. Those are like were really influential horror. The look of this was influential. The look, and I think that it's still influential in the sense of horror that tries to like not show things as much, because they think that what you can imagine is like scarier than what you can show on screen, which I believe like Val Lewton was like a big advocate of that. Like he didn't even want to show the cat at all. But then like the RKO executives were like, hey, we paid for this panther, so you're gonna put it in the fucking movie.
Yeah, funny
you know what I mean?
They got these panthers in these really barren looking cages on hard surfaces walking around in public. Go, man, I fucking hate that they used to do that to cats and shit.
I think they probably did, because I bet I went to some zoos in the 70s that still kind of looked like that.
Now they could go indoors, and there was another thing. They only had them out there certain hours. But then the custodian is like, oh yeah, those things are deadly and evil. You know, they're like something from Satan. And then in the same movie later on, you see that same panther wrestling live action with another dude. You could tell it's a setup. That's just somebody's pookie. You know what I mean? They're kind of upholding the stereotype of how vicious fucking big cats are. And yeah, people have been killed by them in the wild, and sometimes they go in captivity, fucking gone crazy. But you can nowadays with YouTube. We had no idea when I was a kid, even up into the 90s, of fucking what those things were like. You can go on YouTube and see that there are people that own them in their house, just walking around. It's like the family pets, like having a big old dog getting in bed. I Am Puma. Look at that channel. That fucking Puma gets into bed with that fucking Russian dude, and that fucking Puma loves that man. You know what I mean? He does. Just sleeps with him. And when he comes home from work, you know, and his wife is like, oh, here comes daddy, and that fucking Puma's you're home. Yeah. So, you know, if they're raised around people and they're being fed, they just...
Yeah, and if you don't fuck with them...
Yeah, not fuck with them. They're just like...
I mean, in the wild, they'll eat your face off, sure.
The temperament of them is just like a domestic house cat, from what I've seen from the people that own them. The difference is the size. And the size matters in the animal kingdom when shit's hungry, okay? And if it doesn't know you...
Well, I've often said that if Pookie was our size,
if they're that size,
she would probably absolutely eat us. Well, I don't know if she would eat us specifically because we raised her.
Right. No,
but
she wouldn't eat us.
If she was in the wild, and she was big.
Depends on the situation, but we're getting a little bit off topic. I'm just saying that.
What else is new?
I'm just saying that, you know, the size matters in the animal kingdom, and so does hunger, but also family matters too. You don't see cats eating each other when they're hungry, so they just.
I mean, the dad lions will eat the cubs of like another.
That's like birth control.
Yeah.
That's just because they're trying to bring the females back into heat.
Yeah, because he's like, hey, these aren't my kids. I'm gonna snack on them.
We're gonna press the reset button on this because you're having my kids next time. You know, it's that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about it. It's instinct. They're just told to do it. You know, I guess they can sense that those aren't theirs. Or it may be not that. It might just be that, oh, no, you're going to give it up, and you know, you're going back into heat. I'm sick of this. Might be that too, because they won't go into heat as long as they're, you know, taking care of young.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I was kind of cracking up like when we were watching the movie last night, and Tom kept calling them all Pookies because all the cat people, and he's like, "Oh my God, 40s Pookie fight." You know what I mean? So I thought that was like super funny. But yeah, but I actually really liked. Like I said, if you go into this like not expecting a horror movie because it's not necessarily scary, but I liked the drama aspect of it. I specifically like the kind of love triangle that goes on between Irena, the cat person, and her husband, whose name is Oliver Reed, actually.
Yeah.
And he's played by Kent Smith, and his like work. Like this girl that he works with, this woman that he works with, and kind of she falls in love with him and blah, blah, blah. The weird thing about it, though, and I didn't even think about this while I was watching it, but I think I thought about it later. Because there's a thing where, I mean, basically, the dude, Oliver, he meets her in a park, like while she's sketching the big cats, right? And like literally 5 minutes later they're married. I'm assuming that it's like kind of going ahead in time.
I missed it. I
That's when they were at the restaurant and the other Pookie came and said sister like to her in Serbian.
Right.
That was the wedding.
Yeah, okay.
That's or like the reception, I guess.
Right.
And the thing about like he marries her like without I mean, I'm assuming...
He didn't consummate the marriage, ain't
Well, that's what I'm with. But she told him, and she told him ahead of time, she's like, hey, look, man, it's like, I'm really have all these fears that I'm afraid, you know, she told him about where she came from and all the fairy tales, quote unquote, that are true, you know, spoiler alert, about like the cat people and everything, and she suspects she might be one. So he knew when he married her that she was like, I might not be down with this sex thing because I'm afraid I'm going to turn into a cat and eat you, which, you know, fair enough. She did give him warning of that, and he married her anyway because he thought that she was delusional. And you know, and she kept saying, I need more time, I didn't want to fall in love with you, you know, I wanted to be alone because I was afraid this was going to happen, yada yada. But he seemed like he couldn't. The weird thing about him was that he seemed like he couldn't resist her. Maybe that was kind of like the cat people kind of thing, because he didn't really seem to know that much about her like as a person. He seemed to like the work woman better.
Yeah, I didn't really like her character that much. I mean, it seemed she seemed kind of mopey and whiny, and it was drawn out a lot, and it was too much of her. I don't know, you know, yeah, I don't know. The way it was edited and the way that character was written. I know it's the 40s, but it had to have been tighter, I think, because it's
a short movie. It's only an hour. It's only an hour and 15
Her dialogue
minutes.
seemed repetitive to me. They should have done something with her werecat sister. Should have been involved in this story. Dude should have come up with this whole thing about we have to do the mature thing. There's these doctors that help people. They're called psychiatrists. You know what I mean? Fucking like, that's some cutting edge shit back in those days when we need to take you to these guys called psychiatrists.
Well, yeah, he did.
People didn't talk about that shit.
But then the psychiatrist turned out to be a sleazebag.
Yeah, he was trying to get in those fucking drawers, man.
That's what I mean, and that's why when she turned into the panther at the end and ate him, I was okay with it.
Yeah,
I was okay, and because like I said, nobody believed her. She tried to tell them.
The psychiatrist thought all of her problems was that were due to the fact that she had unrequited love for him. You know,
he was super gross.
He thought she loved him. The psychiatrist thought that she loved him.
What would happen if I kissed you right now? And she says, I would not like to be kissed by you. She says,
no, you're fooling yourself. That's what he told you. You're just fooling yourself.
I know you want me. I know you want me. He was all like that.
Yeah, you're just lying to yourself.
And MST fans, that was the same condescending douche that was in The She Creature. I know he was in some other Val Lewton movies too. But so he's like super, super condescending. Ooh, clever girl. He was like all like that, and I was like, oh my god, please eat him.
Well,
she does kill him.
He's not that he's not that obvious. He does kind of he does.
To me, it was.
He has a veneer of fucking being like real fucking high class and stuff, and that he's trustworthy. But when you actually analyze what he's saying, no, he's trying to fucking use his mental powers to get in those drawers, man.
Yeah.
But and it didn't work though.
Well, no,
and she turned into a werecat and fucking killed him. Yeah.
And rightfully so. Well, because like I said, it's one, she can't help it. Two, she suspected she was a werecat all this time and told them that she suspected she was a werecat. It's their fault that they didn't believe her, okay? She can't help what happened. You know, she's like an animal.
I don't think she rightfully killed him. What are you talking about? He didn't rape her?
No, but I'm just saying
he just fucking made a move on her and just says, "Come on, baby," you know what I mean? And this
she had,
bam,
but she had told him, she had told him like numerous times. I said that was his fault for not believing her.
Yeah.
She couldn't help turning into a werecat.
Yeah. All you had to do is just get her too riled up, man. Boom, next thing you know.
Yeah, because it's not just sexual arousal, it was also anger, and it was also jealousy, because when her husband, like, starts going and, like, falling in love with his work colleague, you know, she obviously, like, Irena gets jealous and starts stalking that woman, which leads to kind of that scene where you kind of just see the cat's shadow, like, on the thing, and you hear her growling, like, when the woman's in the pool. So it's not just, it's any kind of like strong emotion. And so it does really seem like her whole life she's tried to like keep an even keel and like trying to keep on the down low just in case, like, so she doesn't turn into the shit. But, you know, things happen. And then, like I said, it's, you know, I'm not saying, I don't know. Maybe I am saying that like the psychiatrist kind of had it coming, because one, he was just creepy.
So if you're a creepy dude and you try to date some chick, she can kill you. That's what she's saying.
No, it's not. He didn't rape her, he didn't do anything. He just made it past you left out a huge thing from the context of this movie. She turns into a werecat, and she can't help it. Yeah. And she warned him that would happen. Yeah. And I said, so that's his fault that he didn't believe her and still tried to like mac on her anyway after she told him not to.
He thought she was crazy.
That's what that's what I mean. That's his fault. I'm not saying that like anybody like you deserve to kill him unless you like really come on strong. Yeah, but I was like, if that woman has repeatedly told you that she's a werecat and she's like, yeah, I'm afraid that I'll turn into a werecat, like if I get mad or if you like try to like have sex with me, and he's like, oh, you little childish idiot, like you don't know anything, and then he still tries to do it anyway, and then she's like, oh, well, turn into a werecat, now you're dead.
He thought it was some kind of neurosis.
He found out he was wrong, didn't he?
He thought it was, well, I think it was, you know, he thought it was some superstition from back in the honky motherland.
Well, yeah, that's what her husband thought, too. Yeah, and he was also wrong.
And that he can disprove it, you know, like, watch, I just kiss you and see nothing happens, you know what I mean?
And then,
yeah, but, you know, he's trying to be logical. That's kind of what it is.
Well, I know that.
But, you know... Yeah, he was trying to mac on her though too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After she told him that she didn't want him to.
That's no reason to kill the dude. I'm just saying that, you know, it wasn't justified that say. It's just that she's a monster.
Yeah, and like I said, she can't help being a monster, and she warned them.
Yeah. Now they should have done a bunch of other stuff with the story though. There's a bunch of wasted potential with the story. It wasn't quite complicated enough. Not enough happens in it. Her character doesn't get fleshed out enough.
Well, she's seen as kind of a mystery. And I kind of feel like, too, that she's almost like a representation of, like, I don't know, like, it was kind of like repressed sexuality, I guess. Yeah. I guess they were kind of like coming from that angle with her.
She should have killed several dudes in the movie and several women for different reasons. She should have try to somehow overcome and control these abilities and these powers, and then eventually somebody. Then she should have had that other Pookie cat as a fucking mentor.
Older Pookie.
Yeah, and then she eventually gets killed. It really should have been. She should have been killed by her husband. She should have been killed by her husband defending the girl that he worked with. That's how it really should have ended, if you asked me.
I mean, now she got wounded by the psychiatrist, right, while they were fighting, because he had like that cane that had the blade in it, and he like stabbed her, but like just in the shoulder. But then she just went. She just goes.
Her husband worked with a woman who was really more his style. They had the same profession. They worked in a shipbuilding thing. You know what I mean? Which is it's showing you inside an office in the 40s where you got draftsmen and draftspeople working in there drafting out ships and barges, which is in those days that was a high-tech job, man. Doing drafting and stuff, mechanical engineering and stuff, and it's showing you that the movie's showing you that they had women doing that, and they were working in that office.
Well, she was pretty much like on the same. I guess he was an engineer. Was she also an engineer?
I think that's what they were saying.
I think that she was also an engineer. She worked right next to him and doing the same stuff.
And she fucking actually laid it on thick that he has trapped himself in this marriage that for the woman that really he had nothing in common with.
Yeah,
he says basically he's like, yeah, I don't know what it is. She's just hot. She's just so hot, I can't resist. Basically what he's saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I thought they were implying that because she was a werecat that he couldn't help himself. Maybe. Because he seemed like, I guess he'd worked with Alice, is the co-worker's name. Like, he had worked with her for a long time, and they were like buddies. Yeah. And I kind of feel like she was in love with him, and she finally like admitted it, but he seemed so clueless. Yeah. That it's like she was right there like all this time before he even met Irena, and then he just meets this girl like randomly in a park, and then he marries her, and then later he's just like, what the fuck, I don't even know anything about her. I'm
should have ended after she kills a bunch of people. She's trying to fucking deal with this stuff, and him and his work partner, that girl, that blonde, they should have gone to try to rescue her from something, the cops or whatever. And when she sees her husband with that other woman, in a fit of rage, she turns into a damn werecat.
And jumps in and tries to tear her face off.
And then fucking she...
in a poopy fight.
Yeah, and the husband kills the panther form to save the
girlfriend.
The woman he really should have been in love with.
See, that's what I mean. I don't understand, But like I said, I think the implication was that Irena was, because she wasn't trying to like me. She was just minding her own beeswax at the zoo. Yeah. And then he suddenly like started hey, and like flirting and everything. And she's just like, hey, great. But then she was like, oh, okay, whatever. But I think that because she had that cat person thing, that he couldn't like help himself.
There's those cat pheromones.
That's what I'm saying. I think that that's what the implication was. Even though obviously they couldn't come out and say that, because this is a post-Hays Code movie.
Yeah, his explanation to the other woman that he worked with, who was in love with him, his explanation to her of what it was why he was with her, boiled down to, I don't know.
He just said, I was drawn to her. That's what he said.
I don't know.
That's what I mean. So I think it was like some kind of...
She's just beautiful.
Yeah. Because like I said, he didn't really seem to know anything about her, really, or be interested in her as a person, whereas him and the co-worker seemed to have a lot more in common.
She was actually kind of thin in terms of character. There wasn't much to her.
Well, like I said, I think she was just supposed to be like mysterious, like a femme fatale kind of character, but not a bad person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, she's a monster, but she can't help being a monster.
She just seemed kind of just vapid to me, that character. Didn't seem mysterious at all, just kind of vapid, just a vapid kid. You know, she's probably, what, 19, 20?
I don't know. It's hard to tell back then because the young people looked older.
I think she's supposed to be like 19 or 20. And she had a badass pad. I mean, she was just... She'd have to be from a super wealthy family to afford a place like that. And what I guessed was in maybe New York or Chicago. It's
supposed to be New York, I think.
New York, okay.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure they shot it all on sets because, like I said, they were reusing, stuff from their lots.
Only an heiress would live in a.
Yeah, I mean that was a really, really nice place. So it was
like super, super glamorous. All right.
And I mean, she was supposed to be what, like a fashion illustrator, right? Or that's what she said, anyway. I don't know.
Which I don't think there's a bunch of money in. I don't think there's a bunch of money in that. So that means that she had just a kind of like a toy degree to give her some purpose, an excuse for saying that she was educated. But really, when you're old money, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Now, because she said, she did say a little bit about her past. Like I said, she'd been in some village in Serbia. She'd escaped from there. She didn't know who her dad was, but that her mom... Now, did her mom get killed, or they said that her mom was maybe a werecat, or they thought she was a witch or something?
I don't remember.
Because I'm assuming that she had to have gotten money somehow. Because, like I said,
witch. They never mentioned witch.
They did.
Satanist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said witch too, though. That they said, they thought she was like a cat person, like or whatever, and that she was a witch or a Satanist or something. Okay. Like, yeah, so there was that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if you go into this, if you like stuff from the 1940s, if you like Val Lewton stuff, if you've seen like I Walked with a Zombie, and he did one called like Isle of the Dead, and he did like a bunch of ones for RKO. This was the first one he did for them. And like I said, I would recommend like not going into it expecting it to be a horror movie. Like, it's got creepy scenes in it that were really influential, but it's not scary really necessarily, but it was actually like really, really influential. And like I said, I'm kind of interested to see the remake again too, now that we've seen the old one, because I remember really liking the remake, but I haven't seen it in a long time. That was Malcolm McDowell and Natasha Kinski, right?
Yeah.
And they actually put
Hot
them
ass Natasha Kinski. That fucking crazy motherfucker right there. It's crazy sick motherfucker had hot daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently he also thought so.
Yeah. Or at least with one of them. But
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yuck.
He was crazy. Klaus.
Well, yeah.
Crazy.
But, well, I think in the remake, like I said, they made it more like American Werewolf in London, so it's like more overtly horror.
Yeah.
But they also made it so that Natasha Kinski wasn't the only cat person. Like, they made it, I'm not really sure why, but they also made Malcolm McDowell like her brother, right? And he was also a cat person?
Yeah, you see, in the remake, cat people would only turn into the Panther if they had sex with a mortal human.
Oh, okay.
But it wouldn't happen if they did it with their own kind. But the only of her own kind that was still around was her brother.
Right. So you know how
Yeah.
that turned out.
Right. Right.
So, you know.
And you know.
Incest.
Yeah, and evidently incest doesn't matter between cats anyway. That kind of deal.
Yeah. Now I kind of want to see that one again, too.
Mm.
Because that was like,
So,
I remember
yeah.
that being like
so
a pretty
he
fucking
basically
weird movie.
lays it on her. He's like, because they didn't grow up together in the remake. They
Yeah,
kinda
that's right. I
they
forgot.
reunite much later, and she didn't even know that she had a brother.
That's right. I forgot.
And fucking, he tracked her down. He was looking for her because he knew he had a sister somewhere. That's how I remember it. And he had been looking for her.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess
he got sick of fucking turning into a damn werecat every time he was getting laid.
he's like, man, I'm tired of like
Tired
having
of fucking having to get rid of these bodies.
I know, it's like, so I got this big mess to clean
Yeah.
up. Jesus Christ. This is really like too
Yeah.
much trouble. I know, can you imagine? Well, like I said, if you're a cat person, that would be
Right.
that would really be an inconvenience.
So it wasn't just me saying this. Somebody else agreed that this story is not complicated enough. It would have been a lot better. See, they had another werecat in this. See, and then there was another woman in this, another love interest. It's just the story was not enough. It looked good though. It had some good ideas, and the certain effects and the way things are edited were kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, but it is very subdued.
It's too subdued.
It is very subdued. And like I said, that's up to the person. Like, some people still actually like really like this movie. I really like this movie, but I agree that it is very subdued. And I wouldn't call it a horror movie necessarily.
More like a psycho thriller, drama thriller.
Yeah, I think it's like a drama thriller, like with noir and horror sprinkled on top of it. So I would call it that.
I got a feeling that this probably did super well with female audiences of that time. I think it's a female-oriented type movie. The main characters are female.
And they're actually good characters, especially for the time. Like, they were actually, like, pretty...
It's visually the kind of movie that women would like, especially back then. And that's probably why it did so well. And it's scary, but not so scary that it would be turned off a female audience at that time. So it'd be kind of like an accessible horror movie for female audience of that time. I think that's probably why. So what they did is they probably inadvertently hit a niche market, and it had kind of a fucking romance motif. See. Which that would have been niche market right there, boom, and so they fulfilled a demand that
they didn't really know that they had. Yeah, that's actually a good point, because probably you have to think like the Universal monster movies were really popular, but I kind of feel like that was more skewed younger. And
male.
And maybe more male. Like, probably not, I don't know, like, generally, but it was probably, like, a younger male audience. Whereas, like, this one seemed like it's kind of a horror movie, but like I said, it was classy, and it was more geared toward adults.
Yeah.
And was more maybe geared toward a female audience. And like I said, but RKO probably didn't even think that that was a market that they could exploit.
So what you're talking about is the 1940s version of the Jack Nicholson movie Wolf. Wolf was a werewolf movie skewed older adult. All right, this was kind of like that.
Yeah, that's actually like probably that's a more recent
Older adult, more female though, more female audience for this one. Wolf was for both male and female.
Yeah,
but this one is more female, I think. So,
although dudes can watch it, I don't think it's like girly, but you know what I mean. But it is more focused on. It's more focused on the love triangle.
Love triangle, the romances.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just gonna say probably did real well, you know. And the guy said, "Hey, you know, you might want to take your girl to go see that new Cat People movie." It's gonna be one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Hey, would you like to come see Cat People? Everybody says it's a great movie. Oh, it's supposed to be so romantic. Yeah. Scary. Okay, let's go see it. That's what they're doing. That's probably what the angle was.
Yeah, maybe, and like you said, maybe the audiences responded to it in a way that that RKO didn't anticipate.
Along the lines of Ghost. Remember the movie Ghost with Demi Moore and everything?
Yeah. And Patrick Swayze.
Movie, but skewed very female, but still good for a general audience. I loved it. It was a good movie.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember really liking it.
Yeah.
I think I saw it in the theater.
But that was a very female-friendly horror romance movie.
Yeah.
Horror, yeah. It was a movie about ghosts.
I guess.
Kind of.
I don't know if
thriller,
I'd go so far as to call it a horror movie, but yeah, it's like a thriller. It's a murder mystery.
Yeah.
I'd call it a murder mystery, maybe. So more like a thriller.
When the whole thing is about love, you know, love beyond the grave. So it's a romance, supernatural thriller. Yeah, murder mystery type of deal.
Yeah, because he's trying to because he got murdered. Because he got murdered, right?
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze's character, and he's trying to tell his girlfriend.
It turns out that it was because his best friend that did it to try to steal her.
Spoiler alert. That's an old movie.
Good movie.
Everybody knows that.
But that movie did real well, and as it got the female audience involved too. But you know, and that involved dudes asking girls to come see this movie with them, and they go, "Oh yeah, I heard that's a good movie." Yeah,
it's interesting how nowadays, because I kind of feel like for a long time, horror and sci-fi were more male-oriented, but I think from demographics I see nowadays, it seems about 50-50.
Yeah, not back then.
No, but not back then it wasn't.
Right.
Not back then it
wasn't. So that's my feelings of why this movie succeeded, is that they hit an untapped niche.
Yeah, without realizing
it. Maybe the director knew that that women would like this movie. Women of the 40s.
Yeah.
Which that's going to be tougher audience. Women of the 40s would like this horror movie. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, it's probably like a good point. But yeah, so if you have HBO Max and you haven't seen it, like I said, if you're really into horror, you should probably see it just because it's kind of one of the most influential films and probably easily one of the best horror movies of the 1940s. They didn't make a fuck ton from the 1940s, but it is one of the best ones. So check it out, and if you've seen it or if you've seen the remake, let us know what you think about it in the comments, and we will see you again on the next one. Bye.